So yeah, this is our second annual convention. Ran one last year as a sort of tester. Realized I didn't publicize it as well as I could have done because a lot of people afterwards said they would have attended if they'd remembered it was on. So I've tried to put a little bit more publicity in this time. I'm keen to do one of these every year. The last 2 or 3 years, we've really started to formalize the way we're operating, and now people are actually starting to make donations and commit money to this. I think it's important that at least once a year we share where we're at and we're as transparent as possible. So I'm keen to keep this running every year. And this is number 2. So welcome. Thank you for coming. Just a quick agenda. So what I will do is give a quick recap of what we discussed last time for those of you that weren't there and haven't seen the video. Then I'll talk quickly about what we've done over the last 12 months or so in terms of the society and specifically on what we're doing with our research. And then I'll cover those 2 topics as well in sort of what's next. Then I will open up for points for discussion. But as I say, if there's questions on the way, just shout out. I can't see people now because I'm on the slides, so you'll have to just speak up if you want to interject. And I've then left an item for any other business should anybody want to raise anything. So briefly, last time round, so I introduced myself as it was the first time I've broadcast myself to you guys. We discussed who the Watsons were. I went over our very rapid growth in numbers over the last few years, which is one of the things that's really spurred me to start formalizing things. I presented an overview of what we've been up to lately. And then one thing I was keen to establish early on as we formalize this was how are we going to operate and what kind of things do we want to do and who do we want to be. So I put together a mission statement with some values and a short-term growth strategy, which everyone seems happy with, which is good. I proposed a formal structure for the society, including regional chapters and officers, and that still stands. We just need people to fill boxes really, and that will come as we grow. I also proposed a membership fee structure, which is really donation based at the moment, but if we do convert into a formal society, then that's the sort of thing we would need to bring in. I introduced the idea of aiming to find a new chief, and we have been doing a lot of research on that. I know there's differing views on that, but we can cover those later. And then right at the end, I proposed a new motto. So we have the unexpectedly flourished motto of the Watson Chiefs, which I thought set us off on a bit of a negative note. It sounded like we were expecting to fail. So you'll see I sign off all my emails now with long may we flourish. I think that gives us a bit more vibe, a bit more of a positive spin on things. And the full replay is available on the YouTube channel, which you can find on the website. There's a link to it there. So at the end of last year's convention, I presented the action plan for the short term. What I will do is, I'm not going to go through this in detail now, but I'll throw it up again at the end and we can look over how well we did. So there were 4 streams really, one around growing the society, one around our research, one around actually formalizing the way we do things, and then a piece on what do we do with the lack of a Watson chief. So I will go over those in more detail later, but what I want to do first is talk a bit about what we've done for the last 12 months. So events, very happy with these. 2003 was the first time in probably 20 years or so that Van Watson has returned to the USA events scene. So around the end of the last millennium, we can say, there was quite an active society in Canada, and there was also one in the US, and they were, for a few years, attending events, and they had some quite good numbers, and then they both fizzled out. And we touched on that last time around. The key problem was the people running it got old, couldn't do it anymore, and there was no one to take over. But one thing I do want to say is massive thanks to everybody that represented us. So you can see since April last year, these are all the events we've attended, with our tartan there, with people dressed in our tartan, with people, with our name up. So we're starting to get out again, and I'm very pleased with that. And one thing I've been working on the last few months is developing a standard conveners kit. So all of our stands will look the same. So what you see with some societies is they're all sort of homemade banners, and from different events you see completely different look. And I want to try and avoid that. So what I want is for people to see the Clan Watson stand and recognise it. And any event they go to, they'll see the same thing. So yeah, events going well. And here's some pictures from the last few months. I've tried to get as many of you in as I can. Obviously, Michael pops up in a few because he's very busy with our events. But yeah, it's good to see our tartan around. So yeah, again, thank you for everyone that stood up. Members. So last year we had 350 members on the Facebook group when I presented this graph. We now have almost 500. We're getting there. We seem to gain about 2 or 3 and then lose 1 or 2, which is normal. But we are creeping up towards 500. What I've also done now is I've started adding in people who join the website as, open a member account who aren't on the Facebook group. I don't count people who've just signed up for the newsletter, but if people have gone in and created a member account and they aren't on the Facebook group, I also add those. And if you factor those in, we're on 513. So we're still seeing, you can see by the shape of the graph, we're still seeing linear growth basically. So I don't know when it will start to tail off, but at the moment it's not showing any signs of doing so. So on the new website, we've got 58 people who have registered for accounts. And we've opened up to donations now. And I'm very thankful for everyone that has donated. So we've got 24 members who've donated, 3 of whom have donated sort of the minimum £10 I've suggested gives full access to the website. Although there's some areas on there that you can only access if you donate. The library is probably the most useful one. It's every document I find that is downloadable, I'm uploading to the library area. So there's quite a few documents in there that I've not found anywhere else. We've extracted these from various places, sometimes physical copies, and scanned them. So that's quite a useful resource. There's also 21 people who've donated between sort of 25 and £200 since February last year. And again, massive thanks for everyone that's done that. Yeah, it's good to see that people are believing this enough to commit some of their own money to, which is cool. Last 12 months in terms of society. So the new website went live in November. Hopefully you've seen an improvement. The old one was done in some software called TNG, which is very, very good for running sites with family tree data on it, but it wasn't so good for making a good website. So I've switched across to Wix now, which does cost a bit more, but it's very easy to make a decent looking website. So hopefully you're finding the website looks a lot better and is a lot easier to navigate. All the family history data that was on the previous website, I've moved across to a new one. Unfortunately, and apologies to Roy Bree, I took the same name as the website that she publicised a few weeks before. I don't know if it was a subconscious error or whether it was just complete coincidence, but so watsongenealogy.org is the new one with all of our data on, and watsongenealogy.com is the one that Roy Bree has set up for her family. One thing I've started doing is to start work on some policy documents. 2 I want to really get out quickly. One is the data policy. So I am collecting data on people to help me run things, and I want to put out a policy on what that data looks like, how it's stored and how it's used.
Might not be that great because he's in the Middle East.
Yeah. I'm hoping to follow the kind of ways we do things in the West. So I will, basically, I will keep the data safe. I'll only take what I need, and I won't be sharing it with anyone unless it's required to run the society, basically. So I did actually have that policy written on a plane the other day, and OneDrive decided to wipe it, irritatingly. One thing I was quite pleased with this year was the Watson booklet that I produced. So you see various, versions of our narrative if you Google the name. A lot of them are sites trying to sell you crests and family histories and things for money. A lot of them say the same thing. A lot of them aren't very helpful. We've done a lot of work the last few years to actually understand more about who the Watsons were. And I wanted to capture some of that in a really easy to read form that we could put on stands and make available. So I'm quite pleased with the Watson booklet. I've had some good feedback on it. So I think most of our conveners now have a copy. There are a few still in the States. If people need them. What I've done is I've sent a batch over because the killer with this thing is the postage. Basically, it costs more than the booklet. I couldn't find anywhere in the US to actually print them to the same standard. I don't know why it is, but whenever I look in the US to print anything off, it's a lot more expensive than the UK, and the quality is just not what we get back home. So I don't know if my expectations are too high, but anyway, they're printed out of the UK at the moment. One thing we've been doing recently is looking at what setting up as a charity would look like, either in the UK or the US. I've been speaking to some of the guys, we call them the Clan Watson supporters. These are the guys who fund our research, some of whom are involved in running charities in the US. It looks pretty complex in the US, I'll be fair. I think it's a bit more straightforward in the UK. But the issue with running a charity is you need at least 3 people to act as trustees who are going to commit serious time to it. And I don't think we're quite at a stage yet where it makes sense to convert to being a charity. In terms of outreach, so I've been trying to get our name out there a wee bit. So the Council of Scottish Clans and Associations in the US, which is an umbrella society that all of the clans out there can register with. We wrote the Wikipedia article some time back before the last convention. What I've done since then, I've written an article for COSCA to capture the learnings on what we found when we tried to create and edit our own Wikipedia page. It wasn't straightforward at all. So I worked with COSCA to write an article there's a summary version available on their blog, and there's a more detailed version available in their members only area. Another thing I do every quarter, the Clan Buchanan Society International put out their newsletter, and I write an article on the various Buchanan septs every quarter. So the one you can see in the bottom right there is the first one I wrote, which was on the Watsons. One thing as well, I think I heard Richard earlier, I'm not sure, but Richard Kidd, who runs the Kidd Society, they're kind of about the same stage we are. They've got about 500 people on their Facebook group. They've started putting out a couple of issues of the newsletter. They're starting to look at how to formalize as a society. We're both at about the same stage in the development, and so we're bouncing ideas off each other as we go. That's been quite helpful. The search for the chief has taken up a lot of our time this year. So we've got a professional genealogist on board now, thanks to people's donations. And we've made a lot of progress since then. So we have confirmed that James Watson of Soxon, who was the last registered chief with the Lord Lion, his daughter Helen was the only one of his children to have living descendants. And from her, we've confirmed that the Earl of Morton is her most senior descendant. And actually, I made contact with the Earl of Morton this year, and that picture on the right is of Helen. So that's a picture from his own personal collection, and it's the only picture I've ever found of Helen Watson. What we've also I've been speaking to some people who know these things, and they do not believe the Earl of Morton is close enough to the last Watsons to actually satisfy the Lord Lion that he could be an eligible heir. He's several generations removed from the last person called Watson in that family. And he's also acting as the chief of the Clan Douglas. And one of the things the Lord Lion insists on is that you have the same surname that you are petitioning to be chief of. We also discovered James had an illegitimate son. He didn't have any offspring, fortunately, because that could have made things interesting. We found a few other possible lines of descent from the family of the chiefs, and we're busily chasing those down. A lot of them get snuffed out, or they marry into other aristocratic families and take other names. So we still have not found any other lines to the present day that carry the name Watson, but we're working on it. In terms of a commander, so for those who don't know, if you can't find an eligible chief, you can petition to have a commander appointed, whose job is twofold. One is to grow the society, and one is to turn over every single stone he can find to look for a chief. There's a few societies that are going through this at the moment. McAlpins and the McEwens are 2 that come to mind. There's a couple of others as well, and I've been going through a lot of their websites. The McAlpins are very useful because they've documented everything in all of their newsletters, which they've been putting out every quarter for 20 years, and the whole process has been documented there. But as a result of that, I've launched the Vote for a Commander page. So one thing that you have to demonstrate to the Lord Lion is you have significant support for a new commander. And I've also put a map there, which I got the idea from one of the other societies. I think there's 49 people on there now who have all voted yes. I've started to engage with experts on details of this. One person I'm talking to is Bruce Jury. He is also, he helped the Lord Lion write their new guidance on search for clan chiefs or appointing clan chiefs. They've massively simplified it in 2021 to open the eligibility in recognition of the fact that the clans now are across the globe and there's a lot more people involved in them and showing an interest. I've also started a search for present-day Watson armigers. If we're going to have a commander or a chief one day, it could help to have some armigers supporting a nomination or even putting their names forward. And so far, what I've seen from the vote for commander page, a lot of our members are highly supportive. And there are some who are a little concerned that we don't really need a chief or commander. And if we distract ourselves by trying to find one, it might distract us from what we're trying to do bigger picture-wise, which is just to re-establish ourselves as a global family.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, go for it, Kev.
If we have a commander for the Clan Watson, we will be eligible for funding from Holyrood, the Scottish government. You're aware of that?
I was not aware of that.
Because once you're established as a clan with a commander, then there are a whole pile of funding streams to help with the research. Things like paying your websites. It's not a minor thing to have a focal point while you're looking, because we will eventually find somebody. No question, Shane.
Yes, I think we will.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right, thanks. But I just want to, anyway, just to set this concern at rest, basically the process that a commander would have to go through to demonstrate that there is or is not a new chief is pretty much the same as what we're doing anyway. It's expanding our footprint, it's finding more Watsons, it's bringing them in and engaging with them, and it's researching our history. And that's completely compatible. So I don't think it distracts from what we're doing, and maybe even increases our focus in some areas. But, feedback from the experts. So one thing that I didn't understand, there's a big difference between a clan society and a clan when it comes to supporting the appointment of a chief or commander. The Lord Lion doesn't want a few people who call themselves a clan society to come along and say, here's our new commander, and he's for him to say, yes, that's fine. He wants to see Watsons across the world who are invested in this thing and support a commander. I think this is probably because they're worried a clan society could be a flash in the pan, so it could pop up, run for a few years, and then disappear again. And I think they want to make sure that a chief or a commander is actually representative of the family and is there to stay, and the family is galvanized around this person, not just a fly-by-night society. One thing I have learned, the process is going to be long and expensive. And in my view, if somebody wants to be a chief or commander and it's going to cost a lot of money, then I think it's only fair that they pay for that themselves. I wouldn't expect for our members to put significant funding in for somebody else to wear feathers in their hat. I was also told it's recommended to approach the Lord Lion via a qualified intermediary, but it was a qualified intermediary that told me that. So I'm aware that other clans have actually approached directly. Key messages though, two really. One is that it's a long, long road ahead. I know a lot of people are saying, why can't we just appoint a commander now and be done with it? We need to do it properly if it's going to have any standing. And there is quite a rigorous process to go through. It's not as rigorous as it was pre-2021, where there's still a lot of boxes to tick. And one key message from me is that everything about the process is exactly in line with what we're doing to grow the society, specifically building an engaged member base across the world and researching our history. Right, so last year's action plan. These are the things I said I wanted to do short term, and I've given myself some traffic lights. So green is good, red is not good, and orange is kind of on the way. So in terms of increasing presence at events, I think we're doing quite well. We've got a lot of people out there. We're getting some good engagement with people. I'm seeing new members subscribing on the basis of meeting you guys at events. So that's going okay. I did want to build materials to support conveners in terms of guides and things like that. I do have a Facebook Messenger group with the conveners on, and we discuss things on there, and we do try to help each other out. So that's okay, but I haven't formalized material that I wanted to. In terms of standard materials, though, I think that's going well. So the conveners kit, I'm quite happy with. The Watson booklet, I think that's good. I also had on the game plan to revamp the website. So the third generation of our website is now live, and hopefully that's providing value. I'm still growing content on there. So I'm actually at the moment writing a page on the tartan because I realized that was missing. Leveraging membership of associations. So CASOC is the Canadian Society, SAHC is the Australian Society. Don't have a lot of members down that way. So I'm not sure if the time is right yet to start really trying in a big way to attack their events. But I do need to think about whether there's a way I can get some visibility amongst the members out that way. So I'm still working on that one. In terms of research, it was all about the chiefship this year, so I've not done much on determining the extent of the clan. We have been looking into links to Watson's in Aberdeen and Rockingham and various places. I know Kev's very busy looking at the Lamington link as well. I did spend some time looking at the Watsons and Dumbarton, but really the research this year was all about the chiefship, and we've made some significant ground this year. There's a huge amount of material being generated by our researcher. In terms of formalization, so I have put some role descriptions on the volunteers page on the website now, but I wanted to generate some more sort of formal documentation on that. I've started on procedures and policies. I will try and get those out shortly. The two I really want to do, as I said, data policy is one of them, and I want to do a membership policy as well that just describes what your donations are for and how that process works. And investigating options for charitable status. I've looked at it, and I kind of understand what we need to do in the US and the UK. So that went okay. And then in terms of petitioning the Lord Lion for a clan commander, it's not the right time yet, but we have looked into the process. In terms of what's next, so we need to keep building our presence at events. Volunteers always welcome. We try and give as much support as we can. And I may even look at trying to attend one or two myself next year. It's just a long way for me to go, but if I can, I will. I've got a trip planned to Edinburgh in October. So I have a load of Watson-related sites around Edinburgh. I'm going to go and scope those out, looking at potentially having a future Watson gathering in person. So I want to go and see what would work and what wouldn't. And as I've said, I'm quite happy for people to come and join me for the weekend. I'm going to be there for a week and a half or so, but I've condensed all the fun stuff into a weekend. Before that, I'm going to be going around various graveyards and things outside of Edinburgh. But if people want to come and join over that weekend, that's more than welcome. I foresee a visit to see the Corstorphine Church there, where the Watsons are buried. There's a few things we would do. So I put an itinerary out. I will put it out again when it's firmed up. I'm keen this year to try and start getting some regional chapters going. If you look in the US especially, there's a huge number of people in some areas. And I think if those areas could start to organize into chapters and start generating their own activities and events and coalescing around local volunteers, I think that would help take us forward. You wouldn't all be relying on me to do everything then. So what would help enormously, firstly, as volunteers, not just to run chapters, but to help me to divide things up. You guys know the US better than I do. You know what areas make sense, whereas I definitely don't. Also, email addresses. The easiest way to run these things is through email. So if people can go onto the website and create a member account, I will get your email addresses and your locations, and I can then start to think about regional chapters in a way that doesn't share your data across the globe, obviously. What I will do is ask volunteers in each location to start putting boundaries for their area together, maybe based on a member map, and then I will contact people individually and ask if they are happy for their details to be shared with whoever puts a hand up as a coordinator. Merchandise, like I say, the big issue here is shipping. I tend to get a lot of stuff made in the UK because I trust it, and the prices are actually good. But shipping individually is expensive. What I'd like to be able to do is to ship a batch of stuff across to the US or Australia or wherever, and then have people locally that could just distribute it. I would cover the cost of postage or whatever, but that should allow us to reduce the postage to a cost that will compete with getting stuff done locally, I think. Another thing I want to do is to try and get more people to submit material. At the moment, I write pretty much everything. There are, Kev, for example, wrote some good stuff on heraldry, which I was thankful for. I did tweak it a bit. But the pace at which material comes out is limited by my ability to write it. So the newsletter comes out once a year purely because I can't write more often than that. The website's growing slowly, and it's, when I get the time, I put pages together. I'm quite old, so social media is not something I grew up with. I'm doing my best on things like Instagram and Facebook, but if others want to tag us on there or even create posts, then please let me know. And in formalization, I covered that. I want to complete the procedures and policies. I want to draft some role descriptions. Charitable status, I'm putting on hold for now. It needs enough dedicated volunteers to run it. And I think until we have more of a structure with more people involved in running and organizing things, then we are not going to be able to get the people we need to run a charity. And I'm going to keep growing the website. So that's what's next in terms of the society. In terms of the search for a chief, we would be doing this anyway, to be honest, even if we weren't looking at a commander or chief, but we're going to keep looking for living heirs of the Watsons of Soxton. One thing I want to do, we've got a huge amount of data from the last year. I need to start working that into a dossier that is available and ready should we approach the Lord Lion. In terms of commander specifically, so as I said, there's a big difference between a society and a family, really, and we need to engage with more Watsons across the globe and pull them into this thing. I'm also wanting to track down some Watson armigers. So Mr. Jury sent me a copy. Well, I bought a copy of his book, and it has latest Watson armigers in there. You can't get those from Scotland's people, but I have got their details, and I will try and reach out to them and see if we can get some of them interested in this thing. But one thing a lot of the societies are doing when they're putting out requests for people to volunteer, put their names forward as commander, they spell out exactly what the position means and what that person needs to bring with them. And some of the requirements are things like they must have the resources to be able to go around and represent the clan. They must at least commit to learning the history of the clan. There's quite a few things they need to do. They need to engage with people. They need to drum up interest. So there are some very good role descriptions, actually, so I might steal some of those and just reword them slightly. Realistically, if we do go for petitioning for a commander, it's going to be within the next 2 to 5 years earliest, I think. Just looking at where we are compared to where other societies have been when they have done that. And that was it. I think I got through to the end without crashing again, which was nice.